Hello everyone, my name is Ryan, and actually, hang on. Okay, that's better. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan, and welcome back to another video. So today in this video, we're going to be talking about something else, not gaming related. I know, what a surprise. So today we're going to be doing another vlog, and by another vlog, I mean it's been quite a while since I've done some talking by myself, and so yeah, let's do that now. And I do have around 20 minutes before my next break, so let's make this quick. Probably the most obvious thing I'm going to talk about, as some of you, I don't know if I should use the word many, but some of you have probably realized, is that school has begun. And school is interesting, that's for sure, especially in a time like this. Why am I saying that specifically? Well, if you haven't noticed about the things going on, we're not going to get into that today because that's not the video for what we're going to do today. However, that being said, with the things going on currently, there have been some changes, mainly to school, which I will talk about in this episode, starting now. So I am in a Canadian school system, surprise, surprise. So if you're watching this from America or Finland or New Zealand, or I'm just naming random countries at this point, but if you want to know, or actually, I don't know why you'd want to know about the Canadian school system, but yeah, that's probably a good thing I need to clear up. Probably don't, but whatever. Okay. So in other words, we, and I say this collectively as anyone who has to go to school, have the choice of, I think it was 2 or 3 options. The main 2 choices are, of course, go to school in person or go to school online, which is basically stay at home, open your computer for 8 hours, and learn. And then there's a third option of doing, I think, a bit of both, but I'm not really sure what that one is, so yeah. So because I am logical and want to stay safe and not die prematurely, I have opted to go for digital learning. And of course, as much as I want to either rant and compliment, that's not how it goes, but as much as I would like to talk about how good or how bad online school is, I do have to address that I know that it hasn't been the same experience for everyone. People I know have very different opinions about online school, so what I'm going to say is purely reflective of my experience, and whether or not you may have the same experience is completely, up to you, I guess. So without further ado, let's talk about some school stuff. Probably the hardest thing and the toughest thing about online school is not the teachers or the subjects and stuff, it's the fact that you're staying home and you're on your computer. Now, maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal to some people, but to me, it's kind of a bit of a biggish deal. What I mean is that when you're at school, you're sitting at a desk, you're feeling not the most comfortable, of course, but you're sitting at your desk, the teacher's in front of you, physically in front of you, and you have to focus, and yeah, that's pretty much it. However, in an online situation, since your teacher isn't physically in front of you and you don't have to turn your camera on, and you could be lying in your bed or sitting in your chair and no one would freaking care or notice, not to mention that you can say anything since your mic is turned off for 90% of the time, it gives you a little bit, if I would say, too much freedom. Now, is this technically a bad thing? Well, yes and no. It is not a bad thing, because if you're someone who likes to learn at their own pace, or someone who just likes to be comfortable or does better when they're comfortable, this could be really good for you. You could be sitting at home doing better than you did at school, maybe because you just like lying in your bed, or it's more comfortable, or it's just easier, or I don't know, more enjoyable to learn this way. Then on the other hand, since you're sitting at home in your bed in front of your computer all day, there's a very, very powerful urge or desire to, not do schoolwork, especially if that subject doesn't really, appeal to you or isn't very entertaining. For example, I have art class and tech class and science and history, and already that sounds like a pretty not so very fun combo. Granted, there are things you can do to try to stay on topic and focus, but if you really don't want to learn, or you really don't like what you're learning, then there's really nothing stopping you from opening a game and just, not paying attention for most of the time. That being said, though, the situation can both be improved and worsened depending on the subjects you have, the teachers you have, and maybe even the students. Although technically saying your classmates and students, I mean, they're pretty much just as anonymous as you would be, so there's not really too much influence from them. But then again, if you are paired up with people you don't know, which is pretty much what's exactly happening in an online class, which is people or you being paired up with a bunch of people from different schools, mind I add, and pretty much separated from your friends unless you're coincidentally in the same class, which doesn't really happen. I mean, it doesn't really happen in the first place anyways, and since if you are starting high school in grade 9, you wouldn't know anyone from high school anyways, so this isn't really too big of a change in that case. But then again, if you do have some close friends, and if they're either A, not opting for online school, or B, just in a different class or somehow, that could be a pretty big social influencer factor, I think. What's the official term? I don't know. And maybe if you're lucky, you have a pretty good teacher who knows how to use all of the Google Classroom and Meet functions. And if you're unlucky, you'll have a teacher who doesn't like doing this stuff and is, well, I guess not a good teacher in general, maybe. I don't know. But in my opinion, I'd say I got unlucky with this, as I know some other people haven't really gotten so lucky in terms of both the content and the teachers they've been getting. Not to name any names or point any fingers, I'm just speaking from a general sense, but I do want to say that I have gotten lucky, and my teachers, all my teachers really, are really good. So maybe you're thinking, Ryan, what about art class? I mean, aren't you in the special AU program? Yep, I am, but guess what? Apparently that doesn't mean squat in online school. That's right, you're telling me that all those years of mental breakdown was for nothing? Well, you are correct, my friend. Turns out, even though I'm in the specialized AU program, I'm paired up in a totally mainstream art class. And I'm not saying that everyone in the art class is mainstream. I mean, most of them are pretty good at art, naturally, because they are female and grade 9s and 10s. Oh, did I mention it's a split online class in high school? I mean, I can understand a split class in elementary, like 7 or 8, or like 6 or 5, or stuff like that. But a split class in high school? I mean, how does that even work? I mean, it just seems really weird. And I'm not saying that, like, some people aren't talented. I mean, actually, everyone's really talented in their own way. In fact, there's actually a lot of unique different styles that I don't want to say that I find fascinating, but it is quite fascinating to see a bunch of different people and their each unique styles. That being said, I don't think there's a single person who's necessarily bad at art. I think they're all generally really good at art, although that could just be my AU specialized brain and me just assuming everyone's in a specialized program, which is, I keep reminding myself that's not the case, but still. Now, since we're in a split art class, things are a little bit weird and a little bit different. Our teacher, for example, and this has nothing to do with the split art class, by the way, but our teacher, he's really cool. He's very chillaxed. He likes sharing a lot about him and his experiences and stuff, and he likes to overshare, for example. You know how, like, some people like to talk about stuff and ramble on for hours and hours about a topic they're pretty passionate about, or something that they want to talk about? Like me, for example, when making these vlogs, I talk for like 30-15 minutes about something completely random and hope that people enjoy what I'm talking about. This is pretty much our teacher in a nutshell. That being said, though, because he does have a tendency to ramble on about stuff, we're not really getting a lot of work done, which, I think it's a pretty big deal. I don't mind not drawing, but I also mind not drawing. I feel like we should be doing something, but we're not, and the concerned part of me says that that's a big problem, but then the other part of my brain says, nah, we don't need to do work, right? Yeah, it's totally fine. So is there anything else I want to say about the online environment? Yes, there are a few things I need to cover that I forgot to cover in the beginning of the episode. First of all, because things are online, and you can't really, or there's not really that face-to-face, person-to-person connection, and the, latency between responses and feedback, quite often progress is a lot slower. And I'm not just talking about in 1 or 2 classes. Generally speaking, because it's hard to check up on people directly, and, well, there's a bit of a cooldown period. I can't remember the proper term, but there's basically a cooldown period, or a buffer between communication. It's kind of hard to really make a very fast progression, I guess, unless you're either sticking to a schedule or just blasting through everything. To reiterate what I said in the beginning of the episode, when you're learning online, you're stuck behind a screen, your mic is off, your camera is off, and you can basically do anything. In fact, that's one of the problems, which is that you have too much freedom, and that you can do whatever you want, and the teacher won't notice. Now, as good and as interesting as that may sound, saying that you can play video games all day, it's really, really not a good thing, though. I feel like the fact that I have too much freedom in deciding what I want to do or what I want to learn is a bit of, I want to say it's a double-edged sword, but in my opinion it's more of a negative than a positive. When you're learning online, there's more distractions, it's much harder to concentrate, it's a lot harder to stay on focus than if you're sitting in school with an actual teacher in front of you. When you're online, the influence or the urge to cheat on a test or cheat on a project, for example, is exponentially increased, saying that since there's nothing the teacher can can really do. The influence to not pay attention or just goof off or play video games is also exponentially increased, and that's a really, really bad thing, especially if you're someone who struggles to work or who really needs to get things done. For example, someone who procrastinates a lot would be especially, I guess, affected by this. So if you're someone who has a really weak schedule or who really doesn't like focusing or who has trouble focusing, if you're someone who likes procrastinating a lot, if you're someone who, well, actually that's pretty much the best way to say it. If you're someone who likes putting things off until the last minute, if you're someone who likes playing video games instead of doing work, if you're someone who likes to fool off, or if you're someone who just generally doesn't want to pay attention in class, you're much more likely to do those things when you're online instead of in person. And that's probably the biggest problem with online learning. And of course you could fix this by saying, let's say, leave your mics on or turn your cameras on or maybe some other tracking things, but then that contributes to a whole lot of other issues and problems, such as like privacy or how much people are willing to, I guess, express themselves online. Some people don't like leaving their cameras on, some people don't like showing their face, some people don't even like talking into the mic because maybe they're embarrassed they'll say something wrong, maybe they're embarrassed that they're going to get the question wrong or something. It's pretty much all those things that you would experience in school but also online. In fact, this whole online school community is sort of a mix between either doing things online and doing things in person. On one hand you have the anonymousness of being online, but on the other hand you also have the respectfulness and the, I guess, integrity of who you are in person. So is online school perfect? No, it isn't. Of course it's not. It could definitely be improved, and there are a bunch of things that maybe should change. But it's definitely not a replacement for physical or in-person learning. Then again, you also have to consider your personal safety, as with the you-know-what spreading around, it's probably not going to be the best idea to go outside or spend a lot of time outside in front of or in large groups of people. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed this episode. It has been fun to talk about some stuff for a while, and I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the next one. I really hope I can make more of these. Okay. Anyways, adios. Bye. What if we made Can I make a podcast? That would not be a horrible idea. Maybe, I don't know.